Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show, and today we have another great guest from Utah this time. I don't get too many guests from Utah, but I'm glad that I got this one. Tyler Jensen, he was born and raised in Utah, been there for basically his whole life, except for a small stint in Texas. Got a wife, few kids, and he's really, really passionate about helping people refocus their mind from just transactional interactions and really think about what's the value-based interactions that we can have in our lives. He focuses that effort specifically on P&C insurance people, but the reality is this concept and this belief system and this way of being is something that can be applied to everybody. That's why I'm excited to have him on the show, because when we talk about legacy, we're going to be remembered based off of how people feel about themselves when they're with us. We're going to be remembered based off of what people's interactions with us were. And so if they think, oh, he's just some transactional person, one, they may not remember you at all. And if they do remember you, they may remember you for the wrong reasons. Whereas if you're coming in with value, you're offering tons and tons of value, even if they don't go with you as the professional to serve them, they're going to remember that you added lots of value to their life. And so that's why I think when we're thinking about legacy, it's important that we include this value versus transactional conversation, because that can happen in your relationships, that can happen in your family dynamics, that can happen in your religion, it can happen anywhere, the idea of value versus transaction. So Tyler, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit more about how you grew up. What was your family like? How did you end up getting into this career path that you're in? And why are you so passionate about it? What do you feel like is pertinent to your legacy in this career field?
Love it. Thank you, Sam, for that introduction. So I was born and raised in Utah, and I'll be honest, I don't have, a crazy upbringing like a lot of individuals have, and I'm actually really blessed for that. I had great parents. Mom and dad, had 3 older sisters. I grew up here in Ogden, but my parents played a pretty pivotal role in our life and how we were raised. A lot of it stems from the values they instilled in us as kids to live just honorable lives with a mindset of service. My dad and mom are both a prime example of service first, where growing up, we would just see them serve other people in the community all the time. And then they would involve us in different service activities, service projects, and taught us the value of education and hard work and discipline that comes along in life. So no crazy kind of story or upbringing. We're a simple middle-class family that really just kind of lived a good life in Ogden, but learned a lot of valuable lessons. And I'm very passionate about just continuous learning, which stemmed from an experience that my dad had with me. This is kind of a funny story, but he used to hate education, right? I hated school at one point. This is probably when I was 12 years old, and didn't want to do homework. I was like, I'm already good at school. I don't want to do homework. What's the point? Right? Those typical items. And Sam, it actually got to a point where I kind of threw religion into my arguments with my parents, where I literally studied out the second coming of the Lord to prove that the Lord would come before I'd graduate high school, so I didn't have to do homework. I gave the whole presentation to my parents about why I shouldn't do that, or why I should have to do homework. But then my dad's simple lesson was, I want you to turn that passion you had on that topic into everything you do. Because learning's about discovery. And so that was a pivotal moment just early on in my early teens of, how can I always be discovering? Not necessarily learning, but discovery. And so that kind of started me off on a passion of just study, just learning as much as I can. And I love that concept. And then that drove my passion of sharing it with others. That was one thing my dad taught me, and my mom was a school teacher growing up as well, is sharing that knowledge with others to bless their life. And so I was kind of rooted in that background of education. My dad worked up in a university. My mom was a teacher. So that passion of service, that passion of giving, and that passion of sharing knowledge kind of shaped my path, I believe, going forward into my life. Because early on, right when I graduated high school, granted the second coming didn't come, so I did graduate. And I ended up serving a mission for my church. And those 2 years actually taught me a lot about just selfless service and putting other people first. And so that mindset, I found a lot of value from sharing that knowledge, just saying, hey, here's something that's helped me. If you apply it, it can help you. But then seeing that transform lives, that really drove a focus for me of, I love just helping people. And so after that, my career started in training. Got a training job. I was an IT trainer at Weber State University for 3 years. Trained their marketing and IT department up there on all things software. Loved the aspect of training. Like I said, teaching somebody, seeing it bless their work. And then it's like, whoa, that brought me a lot of joy. And from that, I then, for some reason, fell into insurance. Nobody ever expects to. But then opened an insurance agency. And I did things differently. I wanted to educate clients. I had some good mentors and different individuals in the industry. Saw some early success with helping clients. But then I hit setbacks. I got an objection. And it was, your price was too high. And I didn't overcome that sell. This was like a month in of owning an agency. And then that just kind of set a chaos of setbacks and trials and everything that comes with business ownership, which was overwhelming. And it came to a point where I had this realization, and it was, my wife set up our own insurance policy when we got married. What am I doing in insurance? Because I was just so bogged down with all these objections and trials and everything with this industry. But that came to a pivotal part where I had to make a choice. I could become a victim of my circumstances and leave the industry, or I could become a victor of my opportunity. And so, with the help of my wife, I was able to make that choice to become a victor, where I went back to my roots of education and knowledge and studied relentlessly on how to become a top performer. How do I drive top performance? What do top performers do? What habits do they have? What are they doing in their business? How are businesses operated? And just dive deep into that study. Fast forward a few years, I was offered an opportunity to become the trainer for the company I sold for. And so I took that position and started training all of their agents. And from new hires to new agents to their staff members, I trained over 200 individuals over the course of several years working for that company. But I never lost that mindset of, what do top performers do? So for several years, I studied that topic of top performance because I wanted to be able to share that with others. I saw this kind of disconnect of so many business owners and insurance agents leave the industry. 80% leave within 5 years. I know statistically 90% of businesses fail. And I just thought that is so nerve-wracking. So I took all that study and built these frameworks and created 4 pillars of top performance that can help individuals create top performance in their business and personal life. So after kind of those years of study, I launched this coaching platform and literally built it out for insurance agents to say, hey, here's what we can teach you. Here's what we can coach you on. Here's how we can help you run a successful business with these 4 pillars. So you don't have to leave. You can create the best life for you and your family and create a better culture for your clients. And so all of that's kind of my roadmap of where we are today. Is I want to help individuals live their best life. That's our business motto, is live your best life. And that looks differently. So it has to be personalized. It has to be that relational base. In order for you to drive for your success, is you have to have that personal connection.
Absolutely. I agree with a lot of what you said. I have some questions about some of it. I'm sure some of these things you've already discovered, but I want to hear your transformation of the discovery. But first, you had 3 older sisters. What were their ages, and what did you learn most from your older sisters as you were growing up?
Yeah. So my older sisters were really kind of an inspiration. They're actually quite a few years older than me. There's an 8 years gap between me and my older sister. And then the other ones are really close in age. There's a gap in children just due to some, complications with my mom and parents and having kids. But my dad said he held out for the best to have a son after 3 daughters. But my sisters were really inspirational because they had such more experience for me. It really, really perpetuated my learning and growth, because I always wanted to do what they were doing. Right? I always wanted to be with their friends, and I was probably the annoying little brother as they were in high school, and here I am starting in elementary. But I saw good examples. And then, when the middle sister, she first got married, and my other sister got married, right? And their husbands came to my life, who were great examples. Even when I was young, it just played a pivotal role to say, I like what they're doing. I like their examples. I love how now they're starting a family. It gave me kind of that purpose and vision to say, I want to do that too, right? I want to be able to, have kids, raise a family, create that lifestyle. But then they were always protective as well, right? They were kind of the protective older sisters as I grew up. So they had a big impact in just kind of my growth to say, hey, they're a role model that I want to kind of emulate with what they're doing and what they've been able to accomplish. Sometimes I'm envious of that age gap with, when my sister first bought a house compared to when I first bought a house and that age discrepancy. But ultimately, it was, great examples to follow.
Do you feel like there were certain things that maybe your parents tried to teach you that you just weren't listening to, that when you heard it from your siblings, you were more receptive to hearing the lesson from your siblings than you were from your parents?
Yes. I think organization. My mom was very organized, so I think it kind of stemmed us to kind of rebel. But then my oldest sister kind of stayed very organized, and I saw that structure it had in her life, and that kind of helped me realize organization is very important, not only on a family side but also on a business side in different endeavors. But of course, when your parents try and teach you organizational structure, it's just go clean your room, right? Do these things, and it's just more chores. Versus when I was able to see it on my sister's standpoint, it was more a realization of, oh yeah, that helps the family, that helps your work, that helps your daily lives, having that organization, that structure.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I know that I'm the 7th of 11 kids, and I grew up in Utah, then Idaho, and I'm really grateful for my older siblings. That I'm 10 years younger than my oldest sibling, and I don't know, maybe I don't know, probably 10 years or 8 years older than my youngest sibling. So I'm kind of right in the middle. And a lot of the lessons that I learned came from either friends of my parents or came from specifically came from my older siblings. So I actually moved in with many of my siblings, or the two oldest, when I was younger, like 14, 15, 16 years old. I would go and spend summers with them, or I spent a lot of time with them. So they did teach me a lot. I'm curious, you mentioned also that your parents were an example of service to you. What was like one example that's like maybe the most memorable that stuck with you, that was like, hey, this was the time that you believed, okay, or you finally were able to receive, I'm going to choose into being a service-oriented person because of this example?
So we grew up, we were out kind of more farm country. And so a lot of the homes up there were kind of older, and my dad would always visit this older widow and just help her with a few things. And I never could realize, I was like, my dad is so busy. I mean, he's working, he has his career, he has his other things going on. And as a young kid, I never understood. To me, I was like, oh, that seems like a waste of time, right? But he would always bring me with me, or he'd bring me with him to go visit, right? And I would, be young, and I was like, doodle on my feet. I was like, oh, what I was doing here. But as I grew up and got older, I realized the impact he had on those different older individuals that he would go and serve. And we did one service project where we came and we cleared out all of her weeds and her bushes and some of the garbage I had kind of pilated after a big windstorm through her house. And just to see her face, because she was unable to do that, was just kind of whoa, that felt good. That was really cool to be able to help somebody that hasn't had that experience. So I think some of those pivotal moments that my dad just kind of took the initiative to say, hey, no, you're coming with me, right? We're going to go visit this individual. We're going to go help this person, kind of help me see the value of service, even though I was reluctant as a kid. But as you get older, you really appreciate, and it kind of refuels you, right, to serve somebody and see it help.
Yeah, I know that for my example, my parents, I learned very similar lessons. There's a few that really, really impacted me. One is an ongoing thing. So I would say my mom's probably one of the best examples of service that I know. And it's very similar to you as far as adopting, we'll say, people who are older or just need help. Some of them, they weren't necessarily older, but they were the people that nobody else was going to be friends with. They weren't making the life choices that were the right choices based on the religious upbringing or whatever. And so nobody else was really putting in that effort, because they're like, well, they're not changing, so why should I keep serving? And my mom never thought that way. My mom always thought, you're going to serve because it's the right thing to do, and you're going to do everything you can, whether that's giving up your time, your energy, your money, whatever. You're going to do whatever you can to serve this person because they're human, and humans deserve to be loved, and you just serve them, right? So that was one, as far as a mindset that I got from my mom, and even to the point that, last year, I think it was last year for Christmas, the Christmas present that our family got my parents was, we went and did service for another just random family in the community, and we documented it, and then we sent them the results and the impact that was had. And that was, as we were doing it, my wife, because she didn't grow up with us, obviously, so she's like, is that really a good Christmas present? That sounds like a dumb thing. And I was like, no, my parents will love that as a present, because that's their legacy. That's the thing that they are inculcating into their children. To see that their children took that lesson and went and did it, that's meaningful for them, And I was right. As soon as they found out about it, they were just thrilled, crying tears of so much gratitude for us honoring them through practicing what they taught us. So that's a huge one. And then my dad, this is maybe a little bit more, my dad is actually not a very, we'll say, angry person. And he rarely ever even got stern in my life that I can think of. But this was one of the times, because going back to the religious upbringing, I was raised religious as well. And I thought being on time was important, and being on the front learning, very devout. We're going to be on time. We're going to be where we need to be. Well, so we showed up. We were sitting in the front of the chapel, and our dad was not there. He was late, and it wasn't uncommon that he was late. But after we had our family meeting after church every Sunday, and he said, "Hey, it was wintertime, while you guys were all sitting in there, I was out salting the walkways. I was helping the elderly get safely into the chapel. And I was really disappointed that I have 7 sons and they were all sitting in the chapel waiting to be religiously fed or whatever, but not practicing anything, Like, I don't ever want to see my kids not serving." So that was really impactful, because it was like, wow, okay, I didn't realize that there's a separation between what somebody professes to be learning and the actual action of applying it. And so that was an impactful thing where, like, words are great, but action is really more important. Action is what actually moves the needle and transforms somebody. And so I just think that those are super powerful lessons to learn, and everybody learns them differently. And I think that learning them through serving the elderly or the downtrodden or the people who may not be as fortunate, that's really where it starts. I find a lot of people, that's the origin of their service journey. Trying to manage time here. I really want to ask this question, but I don't know that it applies. What the heck? I'm going to ask it anyways. Okay, so we're both raised. I'm assuming you were raised Mormon. I'm raised Mormon. We're both religious in that way. The idea of a second coming, I think the reason I want to have this conversation is I do think it applies to this concept of constant improvement, right? So you kind of have this idea of like, hey, I want to always be learning and discovering. And that was after the fact that you kind of produced this idea of like, hey, I shouldn't have to learn because XYZ is going to happen. From a religious perspective, you could say, we can talk about this from a religious perspective, or we can talk about this from just a natural law and what I believe purpose of life perspective. But the God that I believe in wants us to gain as much light and knowledge and as much information as we can up until when we die. Once it's over, then it's over. And even then, it's going to continue. We're going to learn. So I find that in deeply religious groups, I guess, like religions, because it's not just Mormonism, it's all of them, they get to a point where they feel like they've done the things they need to do enough that they stop learning. They say, I made it. Like I don't believe that we ever make it. I don't believe that there's ever going to be a time when it's like, okay, you did enough, you learned enough, you don't need any more education, you don't need any more learning, you don't need any more of that. I don't believe that. But a lot of people do. How do you combat that? Like taking that principle and applying that principle now into your business. How do you help your business owners realize that you're never done with this process? You're never done adding value. It's not like you added enough value to your client and then, you added enough value, they're going to be your client forever. That's not a done process. That's a constant process. Anyways, I want you to talk about that because I think it'll help the listener understand what you do in your business and also kind of address some of those beliefs that you had to overcome and shift in your learning process.
Yes, absolutely. Sam, this kind of dives into a framework I created on what makes a top performer. And with those pillars, because there's 2 roads people go down in life. There's a road of complacency, and then there's a road of top performance. And the road to complacency is our natural tendency. It's what we naturally want to do as humans. Because it starts with systems. We live in a world of systems, whether we have them established or whether we don't. If we don't have established systems, it's just called chaos, which how many of us run our lives. Oftentimes I feel that as a father. But when we follow systems, we do that so we can get consistent results. And so when that works, we usually see that as success, which is kind of that top line. Now, those don't have as big as impact as when things don't work. When a system doesn't work, we're rejected, or we have setbacks in our business and our life, our natural tendency is to view those as a failure. And so when we view things as a failure, our negativity bias kicks in. Now, because of that, we're pessimistic by nature. We all see things in a negative light. And psychologically, when a negative experience happens, our amygdala, which regulates our emotion, it fires more rapidly, so we actually remember it easier. Studies show it's usually about 4 positives to have the same impact as 1 negative throughout our day. And you've probably had this experience where you get done with work and your spouse asks you how your day went, and just the negative things pop right to your mind. And because of that, our human psychology is to keep us safe, right? So we remember those and they come to our forefront because that was scary, that was hard, that was difficult, let's not do it again. And in that cycle, it invokes fear. So from failure goes to fear, because the next time we have to make a phone call that we were rejected on, our amygdala fires and it brings up that remembrance of you were rejected before, don't make that phone call again, right? Oh, your wife didn't like that, don't do it again, right? It keeps us safe. And so that fosters a sense of complacency where we just say, we're good, I won't do it, I won't do anything. And that's where I see a lot of people go in this scenario where they just say, I'm fine in my business, I'm fine with my marriage, I'm fine with my kids, I've progressed as far as I want to in my field, right? Whether that's sports, whether that's sales, whether that's anything you're in, they just say, I'm good where I'm at. However, a top performer, they flip the script where they say, hey, there's value in that education, because a top performer, it starts with optimism, which is the Latin word for the best. So every time something doesn't work, instead of viewing it as a failure, the optimist has a choice to make. That top performer says, I can become a victim, right? And kind of let my negativity take over, or I can become a victor and take that and learn from it. And if we learn, that increases our power. Now, power is just dormant without application. What turns the key is when you have wisdom and you take that and apply it back into your life, apply it back into your systems. So you learn your wife doesn't like something, learn from it, apply it, don't do it again, right? You now gained wisdom, and that drives success. And so there's 2 ways to increase your power. You learn from trial and error and have that constant, we're always learning. This is the best thing for me. I got rejected because now I can help the client again in the future. Or I can take what other people have done and I can read books, listen to podcasts, attend seminars, educate myself daily, and apply that back in my system. And so then that drives us on this top road of top performance, which drives our focus, which is our last pillar. And focus negates fear. There is no fear when the focus is clear. And that focus in our lives, having those values, having that legacy, having that purpose that we want to fuel with our family, with our clients, with our relationships, that's what drives top performance on a regular basis. And so education for a business owner is huge. We can always learn how to improve ourselves and apply it back into our system and get out of that chair of complacency and optimistically perform every day.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. It's funny. I don't know if it's funny. It's just, it's interesting because we all take a different path to understanding or understanding, overstanding, whatever all those words. We all take a different path there. And if you listen to my podcast for a long time, then you start to think, okay, did Sam ask him to say these things? Because like, how's he explaining things very similar to the way Sam explains things? And I think it's interesting that what truth is truth. And that's what I like about having these conversations with people from all different walks of life. The pathway to success is the same pathway. It's not like there's a new pathway to success. And sometimes people try and recreate the pathway to success. They try and ignore that your brain works a certain way, that you evolved a certain way. Try and ignore these things and think that it's just going to be okay. I think the best line that you said, honestly, you probably have said this multiple times, it sounds like, but if not, you should say it multiple times, but there's no fear when the focus is clear, right? If that's not already like one of your catchphrases that you teach everybody to like mentally, like the millionaire next door, not in the millionaire next door, the millionaire mind in the book, he always put your finger to your head and say, I have a millionaire mind, right? That is the equivalent of, there's no fear when the focus is clear for Tyler Jensen. So if it's not already in your books and everything, that should be in every statement, there's no fear when the focus is clear, because it's true. In any area of life, fear is the experience, at least this is the way I've experienced fear. It's the experience of the unknown of the future, the anxiety of the future, or the depression of the past. Yep. But when your focus is clear, there's no obstacles. Like for me, when I'm dealing with somebody's finances, I want to help them gain clarity, control, and confidence in their financial situation, right? If you have clarity, you know exactly what is going on. You have control over those actions, then you can have high confidence that whatever you continue to do, well, there's a natural outcome of those actions. And then we get to determine, okay, if we keep repeating this task or this habit or this action, what is going to be the natural outcome? If we don't like the natural outcome of that action, then we have to change the process of what actions we're taking.
Yes.
Like there's just it's a very logical way of being at it. But another thing you mentioned is like, okay, having the power of knowledge doesn't really do anything unless you act on it. So I do a speech sometimes that's called hindsight isn't really 2020. Okay, so there's this phrase that hindsight's 2020. The problem is that most people don't ever inspect their hindsight. Most people get through the rejection, get through the pain, get through the uncomfortable circumstance and say, glad I made it through that. I don't want to ever think about that again. And they never inspect the past, which means the hindsight never actually becomes 2020 because they never focus in and find out what didn't work and what did work. And it's this really fascinating thing where it's like, okay, well, how do we encourage or help people feel safe? Because again, your brain, you mentioned, I talk about this all the time, but your brain wants to protect you. It's its job to protect you. So how do you help your brain feel safe enough to re-experience the past that was just really painful and then move forward and make those adjustments? And that's where I think mentorship and coaching is so powerful, not because you can't do it on your own, because we're all doing it on our own. Even the best mentor is not there to do it for you. The best mentor there is there to help you do it yourself. But they're not there to do it for you. They're there to help you do it yourself. So talk a little bit about that when it comes down to you actually sitting down and helping. Actually, before we go into that, because I want to piggyback on the best mentor is there to help you do it yourself. So you had a good mentor in your dad. When you put all of your heart and soul into something to explain why you shouldn't or should have to do something, he said, hey, great. Use that same passion in everything you do, but then go discover something new. Like use that same, rather than saying, hey, you're wrong, you still have to do it, I'm right. Rather than negating all of your passion and your gift, he said, hey, that's the type of gift I love to see. How about we redirect that gift into this other benefit, into something that's going to benefit you, rather than directing that passion into why you should not have to grow? What if you directed that path into why you can grow. Like what's the growth opportunity? But then you also had a similar experience with your wife. You mentioned, what did that conversation really look like? Like you kind of glossed over, hey, she helped me choose to become the victor of my opportunities. But I've had conversations with my wife where I walk out of my office and I'm like, I'm done. I quit. I don't want to ever do this again. Life is hard. I'm crying in the shower and whatever. Like we've all had, anybody who says they've never as a business owner, never broken down that bad. I don't know that I believe them. And if they haven't, that's incredible. That's amazing. I don't know, but I know I've done it. And I know that my wife has been integral, essential in buoying me up. And in fact, this morning, so every morning I started sending her 3 things that I love about, just in text message. And this was what I said this morning. I said, hey, I love your support in all my dreams. Even when they don't seem to be working out, I know you will always believe in me. And I'm really grateful for that as something, an aspect that my wife serves and provides me with. And so I'm just, what was that conversation really like when you're done and she says, you know what, pick up your big boy pants and change your mindset because you're worth more than that. Like, what did that really look like?
Yeah. So that happened. It was several months into owning the agency, and it was just before Christmas. And I had the month prior. So with insurance, you get paid commission on the total annual cost of the premium. And so I had just sold literally the biggest account I had written to date at the month prior. And then the next month, I had a good month. I had several accounts. I was expecting about over 12 grand to come in on commission that next month. And towards the last day of the month, that huge policy canceled and went back to their old company. And so I had to back pay commission for that client, and it left me with hardly anything coming into the business. And so I literally wrote like my payroll checks out of a personal checking account. And I was just like, I'm done. Like, it's Christmas. How am I going to provide for my family? How are we going to have a good Christmas, right? What are we going to do? I literally sat in my office and I literally cried. It was just one of those moments where it's just like, how do I keep going? Like, how do you run a business with no income? And especially, I was a scratch agent, so I didn't have book for like renewals or anything. It was literally what I sold that month was what the business was bringing in. And writing, those paychecks and all the expenses and literally just seeing my accounts go into the negative. I literally sat there and cried. And my wife, as we were sitting, it was on our couch there setting up for Christmas, she literally just looked at me and she said, "You're going to be okay." That was it. It was a few days later, she said, "I believe in you. You're going to provide for our family." And it was just those simple words of, "I believe in you and you're going to provide," was that flip where it's just like, okay, like, stop crying, stop, thinking my business is going to fail. And we had a great Christmas. And it was after that I literally started studying. I reached out and I found a mentor. I went and I purchased like 10 books, even though I was learning that. I was like, all right, I'm going to purchase things on sale. I'm going to purchase things on this. And it was literally just that motivation of my wife is just like, no, like, you're better than this. Like, go out there, provide for our family. You got this. And she has always supported me in that way. With every type of endeavor or different experience, it's always, you got it. Go kill it. And it's that support. And that's kind of what you said. That's the beauty of like a mentor or coach, where oftentimes it's just that motivation where it's, hey, your actions is going to provide the best life for you. So go out there and just take action.
Yeah, I think it's so easy in life to get down on yourself. Managing mindset is one of the most important things. That I haven't seen it get any easier at any level in my business. I haven't seen it get any easier when I see people who are like income wise making hundreds of millions of dollars or tens of millions. Like everybody is dealing with how do they manage mindset. Everyone, and it's a constant struggle. The imposter syndrome of the world is a constant thing. And so that's another area where people think, oh, well, I got to a point, and I've done this multiple times. I know that the way for me to control my life is to have my focus clear, to be writing it down, to be reading my goals. Like I know that that's the solution. Sometimes I get to a point where I'm like, hey, I have enough good things going on. I don't need to manage my mindset that much. Like it's just kind of on autopilot. I'm just in the groove. I'm in the zone. But energy that's not intentionally set in motion returns to chaos. Like that's just the laws of energy. Is if it's not organized or intentionally organized, it will return to chaos. And it's surprising how fast it can return to chaos, how fast focus can be diverted. And there's a book, a phenomenal book called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. I don't know if you've ever read that book, but it's probably it. I mean, I think it's probably one of the best mindset business books that I've ever read. I would say it's probably in my top 10 list of books, but there's other books that I like better for other reasons. That I probably have to do like a top one in a lot of different categories, but it's up there for sure. It's at Napoleon Hill, Interviewing the Devil, a lot like the Screw Tape Letters with C.S. Lewis, but in my opinion, way better. And if you're going to listen, you can read it, but you definitely should listen to it on Audible because they have voice actors and it's great. Like it's a phenomenal book. Anyways, in that book, he talks about the impact of drifting and just like not being focused. What is the devil's worst enemy? And it's anybody who has an absolute focus. You could have the worst plan, a plan that's not going to work most likely, but if somebody's absolutely committed and consistent and persistent and dedicated to making it happen, he has no influence on you. Whereas somebody who has the best plan in the world, the best system, Tyler, I'm sure you've mentored people, they've paid you for your mentorship, and then they halfway do your strategies. They halfway do it. And they're like, this stuff doesn't work. You wasted my time and my money. And you're like, dude, you didn't even halfway try. Like you didn't even put any effort into becoming better. And now you're saying it's my stuff that didn't work. You didn't put any effort in. And that's not to always make it somebody else's fault. Like we can take accountability for our failures, but we also have to be putting some effort in. You know, there's a lot of people who don't put effort in. So that book's phenomenal in that. What before we wrap up here, what are the 4 pillars? You mentioned you have 4 pillars. I'm sure there's a place that we could direct people to learn more about those, and they should go there and actually flesh it out. But what are the 4 pillars? Just briefly on how to be a top performer.
The first pillar is optimism. It's the Latin word for the best. And so we have to start viewing more positives throughout the day. We have to shift our mindset. We have to start viewing more positives so we stop going down that road of negative, right? That our natural tendency. So like we've talked a lot about, that mindset shift. We have to have that viewpoint. The second pillar is systems. As we've kind of chatted here, right? We can resort back to gifts. We need to have the established processes in our business to create consistent results in every area, from your employees to your sales, to your service, to your follow-ups. Systematize it. The third is power, which is that application of knowledge. It's not just gaining the knowledge, it's applying it. And that's how it becomes power, by turning it into wisdom. So you have to know what you're doing, right? The best in the world, they just don't know what they're doing, right? they know their products, they know what they're doing, they understand those processes, but most importantly, they know how to apply it. And then the fourth is focus. You need to have that direction. You need to have the purpose, the vision, the clarity, the goals, so that way you have that driving focus every single day. So those are the pillars.
I love it. So when you're going through and helping somebody, do you go through and give them practices, tools, NLP? Like what type of, because some of this is mindset on themselves, but then others of it, at the end of the day, we can't, as a mentor, as a coach, you can't babysit somebody. You can't be there all the time to change their language, to make sure their language pattern is positive, optimistic, changing. You can definitely see in their results if they're being optimistic or not, right? Because their results show you, the numbers will show you what they believe or don't believe, right? So there's no question about that on the results side. But where that breakdown is in the process, are you introducing, saying, hey, here's the system, or are you helping them discover a system that works for them? Are you giving them the power as through the application of knowledge, giving them the knowledge and then giving them a system to apply it? Or are you saying, hey, what's going to be the way that you apply this and making or assisting them in discovering their own process? And then focus, how are you helping them focus on what they want rather than, hey, this is what if you want a successful business? Because this is where mentorship gets really interesting versus coaching. I feel like coaching, if you want to be coached, you're going to go in and you're going to be coached on that person's system. If I want to go to Alabama, I'm going to go learn Alabama's football offense or defense or whatever. I'm not going to learn UCLA's or Arizona's or BYU's or Clemson's. I'm going to learn Alabama's. So that's coaching. Mentorship is something different. So I'm just curious how you would differentiate those inside of these four pillars for your clients.
Yeah. So the beauty of our coaching platform, Sam, is we are very niche, where we help home and auto insurance agents. And so because we can be so niche, we had the ability to really kind of help agents plug and play. So with the Optimists, we have a whole online university with all of our training modules that they go through. Then we have our group coaching and application sessions and so forth. But throughout that, we give them the tools of how to shift mindset, right? Practical applications, different things you can do throughout the day. And in systems, we've built like all our different systems, and we literally send it to them where it's, hey, here's a sales system that's proven in the industry that you can take and apply, right, to start seeing results. Here's scripts. Here's how you can align your employees. Here's how you can create those processes for employees. And because we're, niche focused, we've kind of already done that. I've been in the industry for years, so I know these are the tasks that need to be accomplished. How can we systematize those? And then the power, we do teach that knowledge in it. So it's great for like somebody coming into the industry, or if you hire an employee, they can learn the industry quickly, but not only just learn it, but how to apply it to a client. So we teach how to articulate that value behind your insurance products and what benefits they bring to the client. And then the focus, we really kind of dive down. Now, this is where it gets more personal. Whenever we meet with our clients, we want to know what their best life looks like, because it's their actions that will empower them to live their best life. So they can't be shooting for something that's another person's goal, right? They can't be shooting for what their manager or their company wants them to hit, right? It needs to be their best life, because the biggest driving motivator is their internal values. So our focus focuses on values for them and their employees. And so then we create the goals and the structure of their business based on what they want to accomplish with it.
Awesome. No, I love it. Where would somebody go if they wanted to reach out to you for that specifically? And I think there's always good free resources that you should benefit from. But I know some of my best mentors, when I first met Travis Brady, when I first met him, he was just helping, pretty much he was just helping personal fitness trainers build their businesses to $100,000 a year income. Like that was his thing that he was doing, which was fine. I went in and I was in finance. And I was like, okay, I have no interest of becoming a personal fitness trainer. However, I understand that you have things that I can value from, even though you're not in my specific industry. So the reason I'm bringing that up is Tyler may not, he may be focusing his efforts on that type of client. There's probably still a lot that you could learn if you're any type of service provider. The concept of value over transaction is a universal truth. It's something that always needs to be addressed. And so the systems, probably 80% could be copied over and say, hey, this would apply in any situation. From a marketing perspective, he's marketing to a very niche client because that's marketing. Okay, I get that. From a business acquisition, client acquisition perspective, that makes total sense. But don't write it off just because you're not a PNC agent, right? Think, okay, well, how could this information benefit me? So let's say somebody wanted to gain more information, more education. Where would they go to interact with you or the people or your team?
Yeah. So you can follow us on Instagram, Tyler J. Jensen. And then our website is also tylerjjensen.com. In there, it has our 4 pillars. We have a free masterclass that we send out on goal setting that applies to any business. On that website, it has our link to our online university, the Insure a Risk University for agents. That's our coaching program. So it's all housed on that website, our blog, everything's on there. So tylerjjensen.com. Awesome.
I love it. So again, if you want more information like that, you want to interact with them, tylerjjensen.com. We'll get you there. And you can always go to follow him on Instagram, reach out to them in any other direction there. But thank you so much, Tyler, for hopping on. And we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy show.
Sweet. Thank you, Sam.
Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me. And if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.